I'm not afraid to take a stand, take a stand. Everybody, come take my hand.
So, it's Passover. For Mike Camilleri, no pregame pasta for you. Only a piece of this. You know what this is, Ken?
It looks like a piece of tile from this old house.
It's actually a piece of matzah. It's what my people eat during Passover, so don't insult it, or I'll come to your house and kill the. I'll come to your house and kill the Easter bunny.
Kill it? What was that made out of?
This is unleavened bread. Come on, you got to learn something about this in growing up in the Sioux, right?
Well, they don't eat tiles up here, so we don't see that.
Ah, well, all right, good to know. Let's, it's as bad as I remember it was last year. Let's start this off. I want to ask you about Chris Kunitz. He gets one game for elbowing Simone Gagne in the back of the head. What did you think about it?
Ridiculous. What message is the NHL sending to the league, sending to the players, sending to youth hockey, sending to the world who's watching hockey, okay? They call one game for an intent to injure, elbowing a guy who's had concussion issues. It blows me away when you see suspension of one game like that, like it was an accidental elbow to the back of the head. I would love to have been in the room where they made a decision on one game justifies what he did.
Okay, so the NHL says they want to get rid of headshots, and they deem headshots to be a dirty hit to the head by a stick or an elbow. Doesn't this fall into that category?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm not sure if they realize that the headshot was from behind. There hasn't been a headshot penalty this year. I don't think that was called in this manner. I don't think I recall a headshot suspension from behind, so I don't know if they realized that it was actually dirtier than the one from front. He couldn't even see it coming. It was a blindside completely.
So over your career when you played with Boston, LA, New York, Toronto, did you ever see a player elbow someone like that?
I've never seen an elbow from behind with that much of a run. You've seen elbows along the boards, but not actually skating in stride with the puck in play, not near the player.
So doesn't this kind of just say that maybe Colin Campbell's absolutely lost his mind? Maybe he's gone crazy? Because one game to me says that you can go out there and injure a player who's killing you in a series, like Pavel Datsyuk has killed the Phoenix Coyotes. You go out there and take him out, and you basically say one game. Well, I'll take one game for Pavel Datsyuk being out of the lineup temporarily.
Yeah, it does. And the sad thing is, does the fact of Mary Lemieux being the GM weigh the fact of suspension that they're already missing Sidney Crosby and Malkin? Does Kunitz give a bigger gap to the lineup? Does Mario's whining to the league earlier on, does that have impact on only a one-game suspension to Kunitz? Do they put that waiver in effect?
Okay, what about when Matt Cook elbowed Brian McDonough at the end of the season with the Rangers? The team that employs him, the Pittsburgh Penguins, basically said, we don't support this type of action. So obviously their message was kind of just not really sent, and the players on the team didn't really care because you had Chris Kunitz, who did the exact same thing, if not worse, gets one game.
Yeah, I think that hit was worse because it was literally from behind. It was against another star player. It was against, an impact player from the Lightning. I mean, if he goes out, that leaves a big gap in their lineup. So you want to talk premeditation. There's no question he knew what he was doing prior to skating in that hit. It wasn't an accidental. I always say the game is about reaction and things happen with emotion. That definitely wasn't an emotional hit. That was a hit where he had complete control of what he was doing.
All right, and later in the game, Ben Lovejoy gets absolutely decimated by Steve Downie. It looked a lot to me like the hit that Downie laid on Dean McCammon in Ottawa, but he gets one game as well. One game for leaving his feet and charging and targeting the head. Now, Ben Lovejoy said he didn't think he got him in the head. He said he thought he got him in the chest. But nonetheless, don't you think Steve Downie was really trying to injure him?
No, I'm okay with that hit. I mean, guys like Wendell Clark, they used to make a living. Don Cherry's making millions of dollars a year off of hits like that where, was it a headshot? I mean, that's just a textbook behind the play, forward checking, D picking the puck up, not looking what's going up the ice, and the player coming 100 miles an hour. I mean, that used to happen all the time before they've got the obstruction rule in, where it slows a guy down. So,
But Ken, he took 7 strides before he hit him, and he left his feet. He jumped right into him to try and hurt him even more. Doesn't that say to you that there's probably a lot more intent to injure than they're giving him credit for with a 1-game suspension?
No, I believe, well, that's how Downie plays. If he doesn't finish that check, he doesn't get another shift. That's his style of play. The league has enabled him to play that way. The league has enabled him to run around and leave his feet because he's not going to fight nobody. Who's going to fight him? He's just a little guy. So the league's enabled him to play that way. So he's playing the way the league plays him. He's playing the way his contract, the way his job description allows him to play.
Okay, we were talking about this before. I asked you what would happen 10 years ago if he tried to do that. What do you think Ben Lovejoy would have done if this was 10 years ago?
Well, there's no question. He would have had his stick in Downey's face, and Downie would have lost probably about 10 teeth. He would have spit teeth out, and the last time he would have done that.
So doesn't that say that there's a problem in the game today where players can barely defend themselves the way they used to? I mean, they want to take out the instigator and stuff like that. Yeah, that's fine. But doesn't it say to you that if he doesn't get to come in there and do what he would normally do, which is put his stick in his face, isn't that probably the game enabling him to get away with what he does?
Well, there's no question. The old school guys used to play. Their stick would have been, it would have been straight up, right up in the guy's face, more or less, not less cross-check, but you would have been protecting yourself. The guy comes, your stick's up in the air, protecting your own face and your own self. So the guy's not going to take a run at you because he's going to get a stick in the face. Or at this point, the player's pretty much helpless behind the net. The player's helpless skating with his head down. But those are you can go highlight reels. Any D skate behind with their head down, those hits will happen 9 out of 10. And unfortunately, the player's allowed to come in, leave his feet, play his style, and out it goes. But I didn't find that dirty of a hit.
Okay, you said you wouldn't have given him a suspension. What would you have given Raffi Torres for a similar hit behind the net in the Chicago-Vancouver series?
Well, his was a little more from the side. I believe that, this was a straight-on hit. So you justify both. You give a penalty for a straight-on hit. You don't get one from the side. I don't know what these guys, what videotapes are, if they're watching them with the night vision on or what the deal is, but
I had no idea either because they both of these hits to me were very similar. They might have been a little bit different, but there was a lot of similarities. You know as well as I do, Raffi Torres coming off a 6-game suspension for hitting Jordan Eberle. The first period, he tried to hit someone. I think it was Brian Campbell. He got a penalty for it. After that, he did the exact same thing behind the net, but the NHL says, well, it's Rule 48A, but it doesn't cross the lines because it's behind the net. They're saying that behind the net, you're allowed to hit guys like that. To you, have you ever heard of that before? When they made that rule and they put it into the league, did you hear of this behind the net business?
I've never heard of a behind the hit zone where you're allowed to be hit. That's kind of ridiculous to have a rule where there's an open zone where you can be hit without protecting yourself. That doesn't make sense. I haven't even heard that until the other day. Okay,
so John Scott, the tough guy from the Chicago Blackhawks, was inserted into the lineup for Game 3. And Raffi Torres does what he does. Now, you say that John Scott has a part in the game. You're saying he has a place in the game. But what did he do to prevent Chicago's, arguably their best defenseman, from getting smoked like that? What could he do from the bench?
Nothing in the playoffs. I mean, the playoffs are so difficult. I mean, we don't want to get into the Montreal-Boston series, but size is not really a factor intimidation-wise. Everybody steps it up the play style. So it's not like they didn't put him in the lineup for the intimidation factor. It wasn't concerned about the fight. I think they wanted to add some physical play and put some size in front of the net, which it's a difficult play because they're trying to replace Scott with Buckland, which is ridiculous, like replacing a Porsche with a Lada. You can't do it. And
what did you say? A Porsche with a what?
With a Lada, like a Volvo.
What the hell's a Lada? The hell is that?
A lot of money for a lot of junk. Ever heard that?
It sounds like a joke my grandfather would make, which is borderline funny, but not that funny. Okay, so John Scott, he is the tough guy. They put him on the power play. Just like, what the hell are they doing? Did you ever get to play power play time in the playoffs because you were bigger than most guys?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think they went back and watched what they did last year to beat Vancouver, and they put Buckland in front. That's what they got in the cage of in the goalie, and now they realize, so they try to put Scott in there, and he just doesn't have the athletic ability to move. He's not the same player, so to do that same, it's a waste.
Wouldn't they be better off putting Troy Brouwer right in front of the net?
Absolutely, there's no question.
Okay.
They need more of a mobile player.
Okay,
Definitely.
so Nashville Anaheim series, Bobby Ryan gets 2 games for stomping on John Blum's foot. Now, first off, tell me why a stomp is so against the code.
Well, I mean, a stomp is a complete control of your body. I mean, to pick your skate up and actually step on somebody's foot. We talk premeditation, but that's something you have control. Plus, it's dangerous. You could slice, arteries, tendons. You could actually really kill a guy. I mean, headshots, you can give a guy concussions and injure him, but when you're talking with your skates, your blades are literally weapons. So I think, as players, they frown upon someone who's stepping. I mean, it's so crossing the line because you could literally, end the player's life or career.
You totally
with
could.
blades.
But how often in the game today does stuff go on behind the scenes where a player gets stomped on, but it doesn't get caught by the cameras? Does it happen?
No, not anymore. There's no room because, there used to be the incidences where the puck was along the wall, the player's battling, and, the guy can get kicked with the skate. But, the stomping now, there's cameras, media, the old lovely media doesn't miss anything. So, they're everywhere. They'd be writing about it.
Okay, wait, hold on. You say lovely media. Let's say you got stomped on, but this was 20 years ago and there's no cameras. Would you have been pissed off?
Oh, it's part of the game.
It's part of the game to get stomped on.
Well, it's part of the risk that you play.
Well, how is it part of the risk that you play if a guy that you're playing against is going against the rule book? That shouldn't be a risk that you have to worry about.
Well, I can assure you one thing. 20 years ago, anyone stomping on anybody's leg would have took a beating awfully quick, and he probably wouldn't be stomping anymore. So
okay, well, what happens
if
take that same game? Take the same game, and let's say you're playing in 2005. This is your last season. So 2005, all these cameras, these HD cameras are around the rink, and one of them catches someone stomping on your foot behind the scenes, and it ends your career. Wouldn't you be really pissed off that guy did it, but wouldn't you feel a little bit better that the media caught it and he'd be suspended for it?
No, that's not really, it's not my style. And most guys play that way. You got some little weasel rat guys, but you know what? No.
And in your entire career, did you ever stomp on someone?
No, that's not even an active issue where a guy would even consider doing. I may have seen it. I mean, at that time, you don't see it very often. Guys have more respect for each other, but that just shows where the game's going.
True, I agree. Boston, Montreal, Bruins looked absolutely horrendous in the first 2 games. Then last night, the first 2 periods, they looked like a totally different team. There's an extra day between games 3 and 4. What would this be like for the Habs to have to sit around and think about how they basically faced a whole different team on Monday night? The extra day, would that be a problem for them?
No, I think it'd be great for them, for the guys to rest up. Any guys are, legging any bruises. I mean, it's physical play. Guys are going all out. It's a fast game. It's a grinding game. So I think it'll give them a day of rest, a day of video breakdown to see where they broke down in the game, where they may have done better, and where the Bruins were breaking down, and they'll give them an extra day to skate and think about it and be ready to see how Game 4 goes.
So you know the Boston organization well, but what would happen in the locker room after Game 2 when they just looked absolutely horrendous? What do you think was going on?
Well, there definitely would have been a team meeting within the players. Coaches obviously can only control so much. It's the players on the ice that have to perform. So I think everyone would have looked around. There would have been a meeting through the captain, and it would have come down to accountability. What each guy brings to the table every night, what we did as a team all year, how successful we were, means nothing if we lose in the playoffs first round. So there would have been a big accountability talk. There would have been a talk of guys really looking to see if they actually did their role. If they're able to perform, if they're playing at the top of the game. So it would have come down to we need more. And no matter, the season's over now. The playoffs is a new season.
Okay, what would have happened You said you were in numerous post-game meetings, right? Team meetings?
Yep.
What would have happened in those meetings? What would have been said by the players to each other? Was anyone calling anybody out? Was anyone looking and pointing the finger at guys? Does that stuff happen?
No, guys don't have to point each other out. Everybody knows. Let's not forget, we're all grown men. You know, they're all professional athletes. Everyone knows when they make a bad pass. God, you're 6 years old and you know when you make a bad pass. I mean, look at you. You're, what are you, 26? You know when you make a stupid comment. I mean, I don't have to tell you, right?
I don't make them. So it's been years since I've made one, Ken. I have no idea what you're talking about.
And that becomes, and that's when you're responsible, mature to accept and realize the fact when you do make stupid comments, you accept it and you move on and you learn from it. So same thing as these players. They know their role. They know, when they're off, when they've done wrong. So it really would have come down to, okay, we don't need to point fingers here. We're not going to win by pointing fingers. How we're going to win? We got to regroup. We got to keep it simple, break it down, and play as a team. And that's what it would have come down to.
Before we wrap this up, obviously there were some guys in the Boston locker room who played a bit more of a factor on the team than you did. But when you were there, did you ever kind of just get up and say, guys, do I really need to stick around for this, or can I leave?
That's a big part. I helped the glue together. I was that hub inside the B. That was me.
So when Joe Thornton started off like crap in his NHL career, was anyone looking at you to say, hey, Ken, what the hell's going on with Joe Thornton?
I had to sit him down and have a good old tongue lashing with him and straighten him out.
I'm surprised that they looked to you to do that.
Leadership roles, right? That's the enforcer role. You got to be that guy that's everybody's friends and you're sticking up for everybody. And it's a difficult role, but someone has to do it.
Hey, you're right. We got to wrap this up, but before we go, if I ship you a box of matzah to Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, would you eat it?
How long do those last?
You know how many preservatives are in this piece of junk?
Like,
it's ridiculous.
Can you send me
I bet you this thing would last 50 years if I left it out in the sun.
You know what? Why don't you send me up about 3 boxes and I'll tile my bathroom with them? If I get hungry, I can go in and eat them.
I gotta go home. I gotta eat these, so we gotta wrap this up. For Ken Boulange, I'm Corey Lansbury. Happy Passover.
I'm not afraid to take a stand,